Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to The Claverings by Anthony Trollope. I am reading you a book with copious editorial interruptions of varying degrees of usefulness. And we are up to Chapter 19, and Chapter 19 is going to remind us of something that we may have forgotten, which is that the last time Harry Clavering saw Julia Ongar, she gave him a little errand she wanted him to run. He should have disagreed. He should have said, "No, I won't do that. I'm not really anything to you. So you'll have to find someone else to do it." But she looked at him with big puppy dog eyes, and he agreed to take a message to Count Pateroff, the Polish count who Julia Ongar knew in Italy when her husband was dying, telling him that she cannot see him anymore, that he cannot come to visit, either at her country place at Ongar Park or at her lodgings in London. He can't do that anymore. They can't know each other socially. Now, this is an excellent piece of advice. It's an excellent errand. Julia Ongar could easily find someone else to do it. It's a very pointed why she's using Harry. But the point is that thanks to the machinations of her dead husband, Lord Ongar, her name has been linked with Count Pateroff in a way that is causing scandal. She professes not to care about that, but it is isolating her from the world. The more she can do to tamp down on that scandal, the better. And in the midst of everything else that's been going on, it might have slipped your mind that Harry has not yet done this. He's not yet done this errand. And the reason is very simple. And I don't think it's hitting 21st century readers quite as hard as it would Trollope's own original readers. The reason is that Count Pateroff doesn't seem to have a fixed address. He doesn't have a home. He doesn't live in Mount Street with his sister. He doesn't spend a whole lot of time at his club. Harry can't find him. That's the reason why he hasn't delivered this message, because he can't find the Count. And that would be a scandal akin to... Imagine you were reading a contemporary novel, God forbid. Imagine you were reading a normal contemporary novel by a normal person, someone who's trying to tell you a story that they made up, which is a good deal of imagination, because that doesn't happen anymore. But imagine if you were reading a Trollope-style novel, and you had a character that was one of many and maybe seemed a little shady around the edges, but you really didn't know much about them. And then later on in the book, around chapter 19, it became obvious that the character was living in his car. It's the same sort of thing. You're supposed to be inferring a lot about Count Pateroff by the fact that an English gentleman can't find him in order to deliver a message. But we are now at a chapter called The Blue Posts. I want to position the camera because I don't know if Frida's going to stay adorable the whole time. Aren't you, baby? Oh, look at how gray her grays are. Somebody needs a BATH. Very much so. But anyway, let's move on. This is a chapter called The Blue Posts. So, you've come to me. I'm so glad. With these words, Sophie Gordeloup welcomed Harry Clavering to her room in Mount Street early one morning, not long after her interview with Captain Archie in Lady Ongar's presence. Harry Clavering has been more or less informed that if you want to find the brother, talk to the sister. On the previous evening, Harry had received a note from Lady Ongar in which she upbraided him for having left unperformed her commission with reference to Count Pateroff. The letter had begun quite abruptly. "I think it unkind of you that you do not come to see me. I asked you to see a certain person on my behalf, and you have not done so. Twice he has been here. Once I was in truth out. He came again the next evening at 9, and I was then ill and had gone to bed. You understand it all, and must know how this annoys me. I thought you would have done this for me, and I thought I should have seen you. Signed, J." This note he found at his lodgings when he returned at home at night, and on the following morning he went in his despair direct to Mount Street on his way to the Adelphi. It was not yet 10 o'clock when he was shown into Madame Gordeloup's presence, and as regarded her dress, he did not find her to be quite prepared for morning visitors. Oh, Trollope. Oh, Tony. What are you doing? Now, you have a whole bunch of options, but you can't just hover over my shoulder. Okay. You're going to jump over to your chair. All right. Okay. But he might well be indifferent on that matter, as the lady seemed to disregard the circumstances altogether. She has come to greet a guest at her door without quite preparing her toilette. On her head she wore what he took to be a nightcap, though I will not absolutely undertake to say that she had slept in that very headdress. There were frills to it, and a certain attempt at prettiness had been made, but then the attempt had been made so long ago, and the frills were so ignorant of starch and all frillish propensities that it hardly could pretend to decency. A great white wrapper she also wore, which might not have been objectionable had it not been so long worn that it looked like a university college surplus at the end of a long vacation. Her slippers had all the ease which age could give them, and above the slippers, neatness, to say the least of it, did not predominate. But Sophie herself seemed to be quite at her ease in spite of these deficiencies, and received our hero with an eager, pointed welcome which I can hardly describe as affectionate, and which Harry did not at all understand. I have to apologize for troubling you," he began. "Trouble? What trouble? Bah! You give me no trouble. It is you who have the trouble to come here. You come early, and I have not got my crinoline. If you are contented, so am I." Then she smiled and sat herself down suddenly, letting herself almost fall into her special corner in the sofa. "Take a chair, Mr. Harry, then we can talk more comfortable." "I want especially to see your brother. Can you give me his address?" "What, Edward? Certainly, the Travellers' Club." "He is never there." "He sends every day for his letters. You must want to see him. Why?" "It's none of your business why." But Harry was at once confounded, having no answer. "A little private business," he said. "Ah, a little private business. You do not owe him a little money, I am afraid, or you would not want to see him." "You write to him, and he will see you. There's paper and pen and ink. He shall get your letter this day." Harry, nothing suspicious, did as he was bid, and wrote a note in which he simply told the Count that he was especially desirous of seeing him. I will go to you anywhere," said Harry, "if you will name a place." Knowing Madame Gordeloup's habits, may feel little doubt but that she thought it her duty to become acquainted with the contents of the note before she sent it out of her house. But we may also know that she learned very little from it. "I shall go almost immediately," said Sophie, when the envelope was closed. Then Harry got up to depart, having done his work. "What, you are going in that way at once? You are in a hurry?" "Well, yes, I am in a hurry, rather, Madame Gordeloup. I have got to be at my office, and only just came up here to find out your brother's address." Then he rose and went, leaving the note behind him. Then Madame Gordeloup, speaking to herself in French, called Harry Clavering a lout, a fool, an awkward, overgrown boy, and a pig. She had declared him to be a pig 9 times over, then shook herself in violent disgust, and after that betook herself to the letter. The letter was at any rate duly sent to the Count, for before Harry had left Mr. Bailey's chambers on that day, Pateroff came to him there. Harry sat in the same room with the other men, and therefore went out to see his acquaintance in a little antechamber that was used for such purposes. As he walked from one room to the other, he was conscious of the delicacy and difficulty of the task before him, and the color was high in his face when he opened the door. But when he had done so, he saw that the Count was not alone. A gentleman was with him, whom he did not introduce to Harry, and before whom Harry could not say that which he had to communicate. "Pardon me," said the Count, "but we are in a railroad hurry. Nobody was ever in such haste as I and my friend. You are not engaged tomorrow? No, I see. You dine with me and my friend at the Blue Post. You know the Blue Post." Harry said he did not know the Blue Post. "Well, then you shall know the Blue Post. I will be your instructor. You drink claret, come and see. You eat beefsteaks, come and try. You love one glass of port wine with your cheese. No? But you shall love it when you have dined with me at the Blue Post. We will all dine together after the English way, which is the best way in the world when it is good. It is quite good at the Blue Post, quite good. 7 o'clock. You are fined when a minute late. An extra glass of port wine a minute. Now I must go. Ah, yes, I am ruined already." Then Count Pateroff, holding his watch in his hand, bolted out the room before Harry could say a word to him. He had nothing for it but to go to the dinner, and to dinner he went. On that same evening, the evening of the day on which he had seen Sophie, her brother, he wrote to Lady Ongar, using to her the same manner of writing that she had used to him, and telling her that he had done his best, and that he would now see him whom he had been desired to see, but that he had not yet been able to speak to him. He was, however, to dine with him on the following day, and would call in Bolton Street as soon as possible after the interview. Exactly at 7 o'clock, Harry, having the fear of threatened fine before his eyes, was at the Blue Post, and there, standing in the middle of the room, he saw Count Pateroff. With Count Pateroff was the same gentleman Harry had seen him with at the Adelphi, whom Count now introduced as Colonel Schmoff. and also a little Englishman with a knowing eye and a bulldog neck and whiskers cut very short and trim. A horsey little man whom the Count also introduced, Captain Boodle, says he knows your cousin of yours, Mr. Clavering. Then Colonel Schmoff bowed, never having spoken a word in Harry's hearing, and our old friend Doodles was with glib volubility told Harry how intimate he was with Archie, and how he knew Sir Hugh, and how he had met Lady Clavering, and how deuced glad he was to meet Harry himself on that present occasion. "And now, my boys, we'll settle down," said the Count. "There's just a little soup, pitanier. Yes, they can make a soup here, then a cut of salmon, and after that the beefsteak. Nothing more. Schmoff, my boy, you can eat beefsteak?" Schmoff neither smiled nor spoke, but simply bowed his head gravely, and sitting down, arranged with slow exactness his napkin over his waistcoat and lap. "Captain Boodle, you can eat beefsteak," said the Count. "Blue Post beefsteak?" "Try me," said Doodles. "That's all. Try me." "I will try you. I will try Mr. Clavering. Schmoff would eat a horse if he had not a bullock, and a piece of jackass if he had not a horse." "I did eat a horse in Ambrose once. We was besieged." So much said Schmoff very slowly, in a deep bass voice, speaking from the bottom of his chest and frowning very heavily as he did so. The exertion was so great that he did not repeat it for a considerable time. "Thank God we are not besieged now," said the Count, as the soup was handed round to them. "Ah, Albert, my friend, that is good soup, very good soup. My compliments to the excellent Stubbs. Mr. Clavering, the excellent Stubbs is the cook. I am quite at home here, and they do their best for me. You need not fear you will have any of Schmoff's horse." This was all very pleasant, and Harry sat down to his dinner prepared to enjoy it. But there was a sense about him during the whole time that he was being taken in and cheated, and that the Count would cheat him and actually escape away from him on that evening without his being able to speak a word to him. They were dining in a public room, at a large table which they had to themselves, while others were dining at small tables round them. Even if Schmoff and Boodle had not been present there, he could hardly have discussed Lady Ongar's private affairs in such a room as this. The Count had brought him there to dine in this way with the premeditated purpose of throwing him over, pretending to give him the meeting that had been asked for, but intending that it should pass by and be of no avail. Such was Harry's belief, and he resolved that, though he might have to seize Pateroff by the tails of his coat, the Count should not escape him without having been forced, at any rate, to hear what he had to say. In the meantime, the dinner went on very pleasantly, and here you have to wonder, does the Count know what's coming? Is that why he's doing this? He certainly seems to be going out of his way to avoid a private tete-a-tete with Harry Clavering. "Ah," said the Count, "there is no fish like salmon early in the year, and not too early. And it should come alive from Grove and be cooked by Stubbs." "And eaten by me," said Boodle. "Under my auspices," said the Count, "and then all is well. Mr. Clavering, a little bit near your head? Near the head? Not care about any particular part? That is wrong. Everybody should always learn what is the best to eat of everything, and get it if they can." "By George, I should think so," said Doodles. "I know I do." Not to know the one bit of the neck of the salmon from any other bit is not to know a false note from a true one. Not to distinguish a 55 wine from a 58 is to look at an arm or a leg on the canvas and not care whether it is in the drawing or out of the drawing. Not to know Stubbs' beefsteak from other beefsteaks is to say that every woman is the same thing to you. Only Stubbs will let you have the beefsteak if you will pay him or his master. With the beautiful woman, it is not always so. Not always. Do I make myself understood?" "Clear as mud," said Doodles. "I'm quite along with you there. Why should a man be ashamed of eating what's nice? Everybody does it." Is Doodles passing a message to Harry? We don't know what he knows. They're foreigners, you know, him and his sister. "No, Captain Boodle, not everybody. Some cannot get it, and some do not know it when it comes their way. They are to be pitied. I do pity them from the bottom of my heart, but there is one poor fellow I do pity even more than they." There was something in the tone of the Count's words, a simple pathos, and almost a melody, which interested Harry Clavering. No one knew better than Count Pateroff how to use all the inflections of his voice, and produce from the phrases he used the very highest interest which they were capable of producing. He now spoke of his pity in a way that might almost have made a sensitive man weep. "Who is that you pity so much?" said Harry. "The man who cannot digest," said the Count in a low, clear voice. Then he bent down his head over the morsel of food on his plate as though he were desirous of hiding a tear. "The man who cannot digest." As he repeated the words, he raised his head again and looked round at all their faces. "Yes, yes, mein Gott, yes," said Schmoff, and even he appeared as though he appeared as though he were almost moved to the deep quietude of his inner indifference. Ah, talk of blessings. What a blessing is digestion, said the Count. I do not know whether you have ever thought of it, Captain Boodle. You are young, and perhaps not. Or you, Mr. Clavering? It is a subject worthy of your thoughts. To digest. Do you know what it means? It is to have the sun always shining and the shade always ready for you. It is to be met with smiles and to be greeted with kisses. It is to hear sweet sounds, to sleep with sweet dreams, to be touched ever by gentle, soft, cool hands. It is to be in paradise. Adam and Eve were in paradise. Why? Their digestion was good. Ah, then they took the liberties, eat bad fruit, things they could not digest. They what we call ruined their constitutions, destroyed their gastric juices, and then they were expelled from paradise by an angel with a flaming sword. The angel with a flaming sword, which turned 2 ways, was indigestion. There came a great indigestion upon the earth because the cooks were bad, and they called it a deluge. Ah, I thank God there is no more deluges. All the evil comes from this. Macbeth could not sleep. It was the supper, not the murder. His wife talked and walked. It was the supper again. Milton had a bad digestion because he was always so cross, and your Carlyle must have the worst digestion in the world because he never says a good of anything. Ah, to digest is to be happy. Believe me, my friends, there is no other way to be turned out of paradise by a fiery, two-handed turning sword. Yes, in case you were wondering, that is Trollope putting an aria to good digestion into the mouth of one of his characters. And I want to point out 2 things here. One is that Count Pateroff is completely wrong about the Book of Genesis. We are explicitly told in the Book of Genesis that Adam and Eve were made to be vegan, that they were made to eat only the fruits of the tree and the bush, that they were made to eat vegetables only. That is explicitly said in the Book of Genesis. There is no talk, no hint of eating of meat. They will eat the fruits of the ground, which will be constantly refreshed by a dew that riseth from the ground. No talk of eating meat. And 2, I also want to, as much as this whole aria is silly, I want to underscore that I have known it to be true. In my life, I've known 3 people who had epically bad digestion. Everything they ate seemed to disagree with them. Everything. They were plagued with it. And it really did cast a deep... it seems like a little thing if you don't have it, but it really did cast a deep shadow over their lives. I don't know why Count Pateroff is going on like this. I think it's to throw Harry off his game. But let's move on. It is true, said Schmoff. Yes, it is true. I believe you, said Doodles, and how well the Count describes it. Don't he, Mr. Clavering? I never looked at it in that light, but after all, digestion is everything. What is a horse worth if he won't feed? I never thought much about it, said Harry. That is very good, said the great preacher. Not to think about it ever is the best thing in the world. You will be made to think about it if there ever be a necessity. A friend of mine told me he did not know whether he had a digestion. My friend, I said, you are like the husbandman. You do not know your own blessings. A bit more steak, Mr. Clavering? See, it's come up hot just to prove that you have the blessing. I myself have the blessing of an ironclad digestion. I've eaten things that would blanch the white from your face, and I never had a problem with anything at all. So I feel I'm not sure that Count Pateroff's ever had a problem with his digestion either. I think this is all show. There was a pause in the conversation for a minute or 2, during which Schmoff and Doodles were very busy giving the required proof, and the Count was leaning back in his chair with a smile of conscious wisdom on his face, looking as though he were in a deep consideration of a subject on which he had just spoken with so much eloquence. Harry did not interrupt the silence, as foolishly he was allowing his mind to carry itself away on the scene of enjoyment that was present, and trouble itself with the coming battle that he would oblige to fight with the Count. Schmoff was the first to speak. When I was eating a horse at Hamborough, he began. Schmoff, said the Count, if we allow you to get behind the ramparts of that besieged city, we shall have to eat that horse for the rest of the evening. Captain Boodle, if you will believe me, I eat that horse once for 2 hours, and here is the port wine. Now, Mr. Clavering, this is the fine wine for cheese, 34. No man should drink above 2 glasses of 34. If you want port after that, they have 20. Schmoff had certainly been hardly treated. Well, nobody wants to hear your anecdote about eating a horse. Okay, Mr. Schmoff. He had scarcely spoken a word during dinner, and should, I think, have been allowed to say something of the flavor of the horse. It did not, however, appear from his countenance that he had felt or that he resented the interference, though he did not make any further attempt to enliven the conversation. They did not sit long over their wine, and the Count, in spite of what he had said about the claret, did not drink any. "Captain Boodle," he said, you must respect my weakness as well as my strength. I know what I can do and what I cannot. If I were a real hero like you English, which means if I had an ostrich in my insides, I would drink till 12 every night and eat broiled bones till 6 every morning. But alas, the ostrich has not been given to me. As a common man I am pretty well, but I have no heroic capacities. We will have a little chassé, and then we will smoke." Harry began to be very nervous. How was he to do it? It had become clearer and clearer to him through every 10 minutes of the dinner that the Count did not intend to give him even a moment of private conversation. He felt that he was cheated and ill-used, and was waxing angry. They were to go and smoke in the public room, and he knew, or thought he knew, what that meant. The Count would sit there till he went, and had brought Colonel Schmoff with him, and so that he might be sure of some ally to remain at his side and ensure silence. And the Count, doubtless, had calculated that when Captain Boodle went, and he soon would go, to his billiards, he, Harry Clavering, would feel himself compelled to go also. No, it should not result in that way. Harry resolved that he would not go. He had his mission to perform, and he could perform it even if he were compelled to do so in the presence of Colonel Schmoff. So Harry is certain that the Count is trying to avoid a private conversation. Doodle soon went. He could not sit long with the simple gratification of a cigar, without gin and water and the other comforts of the kind, even though the eloquence of Count Pateroff may be excited in his favor. He was a man, indeed, who did not love to sit still, even with the comfort of gin and water. An active little man was Captain Boodle, always doing something, or anxious to do something, in his own line of business. Small speculations in money, so concocted as to leave the risk against him smaller than the chance on his side, constituted Captain Boodle's trade. He is a professional small-stakes gambler. And in that trade he was indefatigable, ingenious, and to a certain extent successful. The worst of the trade was this, that though he worked at it about 12 hours a day, to the exclusion of all other interests in life, he could only make out of it an income which would have been considered beggarly fashion at any other profession. When he netted £1 a day, he considered himself to have done very well, but he could not do that every day of the week. To do it often required unremitting exertion, and then, in spite of all his care, misfortunes would come. A cursed Garin of whom nobody ever heard the name. If a man mayn't take a liberty with such a brute as that, when is he to take a liberty? You have to wonder how creatures like Captain Doodles live. How do they live? £1 a day? Where are his lodgings? What is he going to do when he's too old to gamble? What if he took sick? So he had to express himself plaintively, endeavoring to excuse himself when on some occasion a race had been won by some outside horse, which Captain Boodle had omitted to make safe in his betting book. He was regarded by his intimate friends as a very successful man, and I think myself that his life was a mistake. To live with one's hands ever daubed with chalk from a billiard table, to be always spying into tables and into stables and rubbing against grooms, to put up with the narrow lodgings which needy men encounter at race meetings, to be day after day on the rails running after platers and steeplechasers, and to be conscious of all the occasions of the expedience of selling your beast when you are hunting, to be counting up little odds at all your spare moments, these things do not, I think, make a satisfactory life for a young man. As for a man who is not young, they are the very devil. Better to have no digestion when you are 40 than to find yourself living such a life as that. Captain Boodle would, I think, have been happier had he contrived to get himself employed as a tax gatherer or an attorney's clerk. But he can't sit still. He's addicted to his lifestyle. On this occasion, Doodles soon went as he had been expected, and Harry found himself smoking with the two foreigners. Pateroff was no longer eloquent, but sat with his cigar in his mouth, as silent as Colonel Schmoff himself. It was evidently expected of Harry that he should go. "Count," he said at last, "you got my note?" There were 7 or 8 people sitting around the room, besides the party of 3 which Harry belonged. "Your note, Mr. Clavering." "Which note?" "Oh, yes, I should not have had the pleasure of seeing you here today but for that." "Can you give me 5 minutes in private?" "What, now? Here? This evening? After dinner? Another time I will talk to you the hour together." "I fear it must trouble you now. I need not remind you that I could not keep you yesterday morning. You were in such a hurry. And now I am having my little moment of comfort. These special business conversations after dinner are so bad for the digestion. If I could have caught you before dinner, Count Pateroff, I would have done so. If it must be, it must. Schmoff, will you wait for me 10 minutes? I will not be more than 10 minutes. And the Count, as he made this promise, looked at his watch. "Waiter," he said, speaking in a sharp tone which Harry had not heard before, "show this gentleman and me into a private room." Harry got up and led the way out, not forgetting to assure himself that he cared nothing for the sharpness of the Count's voice. "Now, Mr. Clavering, what is it?" said the Count, looking him full in the face. "I will tell you in 2 words. In 1, if you can. I came with a message to you from Lady Ongar." "Why are you a messenger from Lady Ongar?" "I have known her long, and she is connected with my family." "Why does she not send messages by Sir Hugh, her brother-in-law?" "It is hardly for you to ask that." "Yes, it is for me to ask that. I have known Lady Ongar well, and have treated her with kindness. I do not want to have messages by anybody. But go on. If you are a messenger, give your message." "Lady Ongar bids me to tell you that she cannot see you." "But she must see me. She shall see me." "I am to explain to you that she declines to do so. Surely, Count Pateroff, you must understand." "Bah! I understand everything. In such matters as these, better perhaps than you, Mr. Clavering. You have given your message. Now, as you are a messenger, will you give mine?" "That will depend altogether on its nature." "Sir, I never spend uncivil words to a woman, though sometimes I may be tempted to speak them to a man. When, for instance, a man interferes with me. Do you understand? My message is this. Tell her ladyship, with my compliments, that it will be better for her to see me, better for her and for me. When that poor lord died, and he had been my friend many years before your ladyship had heard his name, I was with him, and there were occurrences of which you know nothing and need know nothing. I did my best to be courteous to Lady Ongar, which she returns by shutting her door in my face. I do not mind that. I am not angry with a woman. But tell her that when she has heard what I now say to her by you, she will, I do not doubt, think better of it. And therefore I shall do myself the honor of presenting myself at her door again. Good night, Mr. Clavering. Au revoir, for we shall have another Stubbs's little dinner before long." As he spoke these last words, the Count's voice was again changed, and the old smile had returned to his face. But he spoke that whole thing without that old smile, blatantly disregarding Lady Ongar's message. I will see her, and she must see me. Harry shook hands with him and walked away homewards, not without a feeling that the Count had got the better of him, even to the end. Well, yeah, yeah. I guess if you're just her messenger, it's not your place to give any rejoinder. But nevertheless, he heard your message and completely discounted it. He had, however, learned how the land lay, and could explain to Lady Ongar that Count Pateroff now knew her wishes and was determined to disregard them. And here we have, that is the end of the chapter, and here we have a tiny little example of the shame of Lady Ongar not having kin. Sir Hugh, if Archie Clavering were a real man instead of whatever he is, if she had a brother. Here's where we learn the real shame of that, because a kinsman would have insisted to Count Pateroff at that moment, at the Blue Post, that you will obey this message, or I'll thrash you in the street. A kinsman would have done that. Harry is not connected with her. He's her sister he is not connected with her, and must not be connected with her. So he can't say anything to Count Pateroff, even if he would. I'm not 100% sure at this point in the book that we know how physically brave Harry is. He's very good at talking to ladies, but I don't know how. We'll see. We'll see how that unfolds in the course of the book. But that is our next chapter. Lady Ongar's message has now been delivered. Not well. And we all know now the importance of good digestion. So I'll wrap this up, and we'll move on next time. Thank you, BookTube.